Good morning, good morning, good morning, beautiful people. Good afternoon, good evening. No matter what time it is, just know this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. As always, God is good, and He is good all the time. First, I want to start with because the way I know Miss Amy Jo Hansen, and that's how I'm gonna introduce you, to the world. This is like my sister, Amy Jo Hansen, and I met you through the military. But before we even get into the military, I really want to start with like, who is Amy Jo Hansen, like the baby, adolescent Amy Jo Hansen?
Very, very ignorant and naive and a lot more trusting than I am now. I would say
hmm
that. I wouldn't say I've been, what's the word? Jaded, if you will. But I mean, you just, not just through the military, but just even before and after the military, just seeing people's true nature. So, I wouldn't say I was nicer then. I really just didn't understand the world yet. My mom had me pretty sheltered. So, in trying to protect me, she almost crippled me a little bit, and I had to figure out shit the hard way. Excuse my language, but that's how it was. So, I like who I am now. It's just a lot of bad stuff had to happen to get to that point, but I think that's just adulting, probably.
That's true.
Yeah.
And where are you from? I believe it's Illinois, right?
No, I'm living in
No?
right now because I transferred here to live with my now husband for nursing school, but I was born in Washington State, Everett, Washington, near Seattle. And then my parents got divorced, grew up in Texas, excuse me, Texas mostly because my mom had full custody of us, I believe. So went back and forth and only went to Washington for the summer, except for 1 year. I chose to live there with my dad. And now me and my dad don't really talk. So
Yeah, understandable. And how many siblings are there, or children? Is you and how many other?
sorry, that's my baby, fur baby. I have three siblings, and
hmm
we didn't actually know that my other sister had a different dad because my mom didn't bring it up.
Right.
I have a little brother that, to my knowledge, we have the same father. That sounds terrible, but I think my mom, because she's super Christian, thought that telling us that she might have been somewhat promiscuous in her youth that made her a bad parent. Does that make sense? Like she thought
It
if
does.
almost withholding the truth was easier because she didn't want us to, I guess, end up like her. And that sounds terrible because I have a good mom. It's just, um, I actually have two half sisters. So my mom's been married twice. And so the two sisters older than me they have different fathers, but the one next oldest, Jennifer, has a dad that she just found out about. So we were raised thinking that the youngest three of us had the same dad, but we didn't. So that probably didn't help my trust issues either.
Oh no, I mean, actually hearing it from you, it sounds, or to me, it's starting to seem like a bit more common than even that I thought, because like growing up, we too had a sibling that we grew up thinking like, oh, we had, the same mom and dad.
But she's 5'11", so I'm like, come on, like ass is 5'4", and it's weird that you don't because I guess you subconsciously know, but it is weird thinking about it now that. But I never look at her any different. Just doesn't really matter. They're still my sisters and brother. But yeah, I think a lot of parents do that thinking they're protecting us, and honestly,
hmm
they almost make us more pissed off. I'm like, we wouldn't have cared.
Right.
That would have changed anything, really. But it makes me not trust my parents a little bit.
It's okay. And so I think it's safe to say you're the oldest, right?
No, I'm the
No,
young
the
girl.
youngest.
No, my brother's the youngest, then I'm the next, and then the two sisters. So technically, my sister Shannon is the oldest. So
Oh, okay.
I'm a girl.
Hey, I mean, it happens. So, what are some things that you enjoy doing? Because I mean, the idea that I have of you, especially like being in the military, like, I mean, one of the things that like stood out with you for me in the military was like how like bad A you were, for lack of a better word, especially when it came to like physical fitness.
which
So
is the
like,
part now because I'm getting back into it.
hmm
But it like my health took a hit real hard after the military. Like my back's killing me right now. That's probably pretty common.
right,
I still love the athletic stuff, but I think that was a hard part of getting out is when my body, I finally felt all of the stuff I'd been racking my body with, and I'm coming to terms with the fact that I can't do what I did at 23 now that I'm
right,
30. And I was like, I'm getting old, but I still love the athletic part. But when I started nursing school, that went to complete shit. Like I stopped working out, which, that almost made me embarrassed to see my other Marines because I had gained like 50 pounds, 60 pounds. And
hmm
was still one of the smaller ones in nursing school. That's not saying much. Like, I was not healthy. So that's been more of a mind fuck, if you will. And I'm getting back into it, but I still love working out, and that's something I haven't talked to you guys either. Like I withdrew from school because of my health and because they didn't honor my disability accommodations. And I hit a real low for like a year and a half, and now I'm trying to decide whether I want to do it again. But I still love that. But my interests, some of them have changed. Like trying to figure out who I was after the military was pretty hard. And I'm sure that's something that I know it is that some of my friends getting out and retiring right now, you start to hear them be more vocal about their doubts about their abilities. And it's so sad because one of them was about to get out 16 years. He was going to be medically retired, but I guess they're doing the opt out again where you can opt out early. I don't know all that, but yeah, my athleticism is certainly not where it was when you guys do me. Like I don't run at all now because it hurts. But I'm getting back into it. It's weird, right? Like it's the way you guys remember me and
I
but
mean, it's kind of weird, but in the sense of because I've experienced similar to you, where I'm not as, active as I was like 5 years ago. Like I know life happens, especially with all, I mean, I didn't stay in the military as long as you did and endure, like the beatings, but the little time I did, like it you feel it. After a while, you really start to feel it.
yeah, the second one now I know what like first sergeant sorry major was talking about. I'm like, yeah, it hurts. Like I'm like ah no, invincible. And I joined a little later too. Not that it really made much,
Hmm.
but even with like my big legs and everything, I still have hip problems and stuff like that. And that's just very common, especially with females. Our hips don't just mold around and move really easy, but they're meant to open up for babies and stuff. So they are
Right.
more pliable. And so a lot of females have them. So I mean, honestly, if I'd have stayed in and retired, I probably wouldn't have made it to retirement. I think I would have been med sept, and that was something I had talked about with my medical officer because I was everybody that talks to me is like, I thought you were going to be a lifer, and I was like, that was the intent.
Right.
My body's like, no, like I mean, I miss hiking, and that is still kind of a hard thing I am not accepting is that like I was beast mode, and I would never fall out of things. I think I fell out of one hike ironically after you can edit this out if you want, but I got my boobs done. Remember? I didn't account for that.
That doesn't count.
And I so much like when I had no boobs and like and I
Yeah.
passed out from lack of being able to breathe and my
Oh,
dog
wow.
yeah. But I got so much shit for that. And then the next time we had a 10-mile hike, I was fine because I'm like, okay, I've accounted for my boobs now. We're good. Like I mean, I still beat myself up for not being what I was then. So there's still a comparison factor with my old self and me now. And it's just not fair to even myself to do that because I'm like, yeah,
Hmm.
I didn't have three ruptured discs and a hip impingement and all the injuries that I have now. And I know a lot of military members, you feel like you lost a piece of yourself, I guess is the best way to put it. And I still get sad sometimes. I miss my uniforms. I mean they're my mom's, but there's stuff like that. I still go back and dwell, but I shouldn't dwell because it's like you just gotta move forward. But like with school and stuff, like school was the first time I wouldn't even say I failed. I didn't fail out of the class. I withdrew voluntarily, but to not finish something that I started, that's a mind fuck for me right now because I don't like to fail or not finish something. So those are kind of that's totally off on a tangent, but who I am I now is just like it's so weird when you see people that you served with at that time, because I am not the same person in any way, shape, or form. Like I was probably a dick to y'all at some point. I know I was. Thinking,
Everybody were.
trying to figure out my leadership style and knowing that I'm not what I thought I was supposed to be as a corporal or whatever the fuck. Yeah, that kind of stupid crap. Like it's important to some extent, but I was still trying to figure that shit out. I was a boot, you know. Like
Right.
still,
No, you right. And I do want to ask though, because like I know at least from my perspective, like how I was getting into the military, like fresh out of high school. I think it was like 17, turned 18 at boot camp. But as you said, yeah, you were older. So like, can you explain? Because I like I said, I know how it looked to me through young eyes, but someone who was a little bit older, had more experience in life, like what would you say like your opinions of, and you don't, it's not to berate, because I know like you're like myself, like there's a sense of pride that you hold with serving in the military, but it's at least like what is, yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I absolutely still have a sense of pride and I still love the Marine Corps, but there's parts of the Marine Corps that I'm like, that's some hypocritical bullshit. And it was like a lot of the I had some really good leadership, but
Hmm.
we saw some like what the fuck was that? Like the guys that got picked on in high school and felt like they were getting theirs, I guess, when they came back and they picked up rank and they enjoyed being the bully now and it felt like that sometimes. And sometimes you know, I deserved to get my ass chewed out. I'll own that. Like I fucked up some shit, but it was frustrating because I don't feel like we got a consistent mentorship. Like I was really lucky that First Sergeant Garza, now retired Sergeant Major, was the first mentor I had. I don't think I realized until after I became a staff sergeant how detrimental he was in molding me into what I became. But I mean, I still know what the fuck I was doing. But he mentored me the whole time. But the rest of them, it was just like, I'm here, okay, you know. And they, everybody drifts off at some point. We all move out to different states, and it's hard to keep up with everyone. But I just,
Hmm.
there was a lot of disconnect. The communication was terrible, and they had us like we'd mentioned this in the last conversation, I think almost pinning us against each other, especially the females, because they didn't want to talk to us and risk their career, but they made us correct each other. But I'm like, get your sorry pussy ass over here and do it yourself. You know the female regs, you go fucking correct her. If she's fucked up, go tell her she's fucked up. You got witnesses anyway. They were so afraid to get a, you know, I hate to say it, it does happen, get called rape on them or something, you know, and get some girl making false allegations. And a lot of times they weren't false allegations. And this is the stuff that nobody wants to talk about that's really uncomfortable, but that does happen. But there were those those bitches, excuse my language, that would do that. And so it makes it really hard for the ones that it actually happened to. So it's why I didn't come out about it. Like happened to me twice. Nobody wants to hear that. And unfortunately, like my old gun, he's like, who was it? Was somebody work? Like, I'm like, it doesn't matter who it was now. I'm like, I didn't come out about it because I already knew how it would be reacted to. So those are the things that I saw. There's still some sexism in there. I don't care. I still make women jokes in kitchen and same like I don't I'm not I don't get butthurt. Like when they had that, you know, that article that came out in the Marine Times, it was like no more sandwich jokes. I brought that article in. I'm like, make a sandwich immediately. And my master's like, get the fuck out. Try not to laugh because you know that technically if you say that to the wrong person, you could get in trouble. But I'm like, worth it. Like, you know, there's a difference between the malicious guys, and you could tell too, like the ones that were really being dicks, and really I've had guys tell me that my service was not equal and I'm a waste of space, stuff like that. That was hurtful because I don't think I was a perfect Marine at all. Nobody was perfect. There were things I wish I was better at, but my self-confidence wasn't there either. I think that's a lot of it. It's like you also need somebody not to constantly berate you and tell you you suck all the time or be afraid that if you mess up, you're always going to get made fun of. That was a big part that I had. I didn't want to do anything because I didn't want to hear the shit if I wasn't perfect at it. You know, there was this constant pressure to be perfect. And it's just, I do my best to still be the best version of myself. But that was the stuff that I was like, it's just, it gets exhausting. Like that was what just beat me down. And I got meritoriously promoted to staff and on recruiting, top 3 out of 3 states. On recruiting, dude, didn't even know it because I didn't give a shit about that. I was just doing my job. But it was always still you're not good enough. And I was tired of that because I'm like, I do that enough to myself. I don't need you to be my critic. I am my own worst critic. Nobody's gonna beat me harder than I am. But it's like you needed some uplifting sometimes, and that wasn't always there. That was a problem to me that I saw because leadership has to be kind of balanced out and mentorship, and they say all these things and sometimes there are really good ones, but I think there was more bad than good, and they kind of slipped through the crack, as we say, when the plus up happened for all the war stuff that was happening at that time. But I mean, my nephew's in now, so it's it's some conflicting feelings that I'm starting to have
Oh
to
man.
back, and he's infantry. That's
Mm.
going, yeah. So he's already on it about he's training for a second deployment, and I'm already seeing some red flags. Those are the things that concern me, female or male. There's things that we both deal with. It's just it is different for females, and the males don't want to hear about that because then they look at us and they're like, ah, fucking work, blah blah. I know what's being said about me. I don't need, you know. There's just a lot of frustrations that are still there, but I would go back and have done it again because now I want to help veterans. So it's not something I regret. It's just sometimes I miss it and I'm like, should I have stayed in? And then I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't have. I hear it, but I still love it. The birthday ball and stuff, I miss that. I want Matthew to see it, my husband now. So it feels like so long ago now. And it really wasn't that long ago. I got out in 2018, after a little over 8. So it's kind of weird, like it was another life. Does does that feel like that now? Like,
It
yeah,
does.
remember how I was then, like getting my boot glasses and haircut and like rolling my sleeve, bootleg, and going to the gym and overtraining 3 times a day. Like
I
I
mean,
miss some of that, but
it's like you said, I find myself missing a lot of it too. And like that's the sucky part about like at least being a veteran that's like outside of it, where you literally you can sit back and look on it. And it's like it's one of them bittersweet things. And I find myself like damn near almost crying, like at least twice every month because there's
I'm
like this confliction where it's like I miss it because like some of the people that I met, and I remember like the fun that we had, some of the positive, like the with the camaraderie.
yes, and like only things, especially Okie Marines, would remember like the E clubs and everything that you can't relate to even other Marines on if they haven't been there. And just like any other base, I can be like, yeah, and the strip clubs, all that, the ones
No,
outside.
that
Yeah.
culture, that Okie culture is completely different than stateside.
And I think that was part that made me really sad when it came stateside because it's so
Hmm.
they just
Different.
out. It's like, bye, I'm out, and I almost feel like that even now. Like you almost feel more like an outsider once you get out too. It's hurtful because I gave so much to it, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. But you miss a lot of it. I still have some really close Marine friends. Obviously, we talk now, which I would have never thought the group that I'd have after I got out would be what it is now. And the ones that were my closest almost like disappeared, which is weird. That's the
Likewise.
trips me out. Now like some of my best friends are infantry guys. like never in my wildest dreams that I think that would happen, but it's just who you live with and you grow apart. And I don't wish anything bad against anybody. Even me and Yoho didn't get along, obviously. But I think me and you and even Franco probably had some snips in there that I recall, but I don't remember specifics. I remember specifics with Yoho, but I actually feel bad about how I reacted to her now because I don't know what was going on with her life. That's the stuff that I do regret. Like knowing what I know now, I would have reacted different. I'm like, what made her act like that? What is going on with her? And now I feel bad about it because I don't
Yeah.
stuff I didn't know about her and Levin. I was mean to both of them. I don't wish anything bad on them now, but I know there were some Marines I would have treated way differently, and those are the regrets that I have to some extent. Like it's just like, yeah, even if they were out of line, I'd be like, I was generally concerned about it now. So I was a dick and reacted out of anger more, but I think it was almost a projection at some point of the stuff I had going on too. And I wonder if that stuff happened to them too. And that sucks. Now I feel like a dick, you know?
I mean, that's like one of the bittersweet things that I like when I think of is because it's like you said, like we're older now, so we've experienced a lot more, we've changed, and we can see like even the path you took with your career choice, and like you're always been about helping people. So like I can see why now you're like, damn, like I could have done things differently in the past. And that's one of the things that tear me
I
up because it's like I wish I knew what I knew now, like you said, I wouldn't change anything, but I
No.
really wish I knew what I knew now back then.
I know that's probably a lot of people. And honestly, I was like trying to mold myself into something and it just kind of went against the grain, if you will. Like, I don't want to yell at people. I don't like yelling at people. And I felt like sometimes it was like that showboating stuff that drill instructors or anybody on STL do only when someone's watching. They're trying to look good. And sometimes it felt like that. I'm like, feel so fake. Like that just doesn't feel right. That's not me. And I hadn't really figured myself out yet, let alone my
Mhm.
leadership. And I kind of saw the bigger picture in my second enlistment, and that is where I'm like, you couldn't have known until you known. But I love that I know it now for my nephew. He's still gonna fuck up, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna get DUI or something, like, and I'm like, I'll just be here. And I almost felt sad because I feel that pressure he feels to be perfect. And I'm like, you're already a better Marine than me, bro. You got nothing to prove. Like, I'm not, I'm very proud of you. And it was like he was almost asking permission, like, is it okay if I don't re-enlist? I'm like, you want to get out? It doesn't matter. You get out and do you, bro. Like,
I don't know.
he was almost like waiting for me to be like, no, you got to. Like, I'm like, you make your own decision. I'm like, don't let anybody tell you you can or can't be successful when you get out. That's something I hate, the message that gets pushed sometimes. And I'm sure it still is by somebody. Like, there's nothing wrong with staying in, but there's nothing wrong with getting out either, as long as you really did prepare and have a plan. So that's where I'm glad I re-enlisted, because if I got out the first four, I would have been like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I had more time to see the and figure it out. But it's just it's a roller coaster. I mean, I haven't even been out. What, 2018? It's been like 6 years, 7 years almost.
Hmm.
So I've been out less time than I was in, but it still feels like more time passed. I guess if that makes sense. It's kind of weird when I think of it like that. But yeah, I would have been a different person, like if I knew then what I know now, but you just can't do crap about it. It's
And what's even interesting with your nephew is because, like you said, he's infantry, and I mean, I've never deployed or anything of the sort, but I've at least encountered infantry, like trained alongside of them in that security platoon thing that Chiwo threw me in. And one thing I can say is like just from that tiny little bit of time of interaction, like I was able to see like just the culture of like infantry Marines
very
is
different.
vastly different from us garrison.
Why they don't like Garrison. And I even started to hate my own kind, if you will. Like, I was like, fucking poke. Like, you
Yeah.
know, because those guys, they may come back and be chilling for a while, but they busted their butt when they were deployed, and they're in training evolutions all the time. They're always out in the field. And when I was out in the field with them, I grew a bond with them that was stronger than anything I would have with most of the people that were pokes. It's just because you are suffering together. We were freezing our asses off, puking our guts out from the hiking pace or the weight or whatever, just our bodies being exhausted. And I'd never
Hmm.
body to that point until I was attached to um, be an advisor with the basic officer, the basic school in Quantico when I was an instructor there with them. But I'm like, I still don't know. I didn't realize how much I didn't know about being a Marine until I was with them. And it almost made me angry because now I get it. Now I understood why they had a distaste for us, if you will. That's a nice way to put it.
Hmm.
And I don't blame them anymore. I'm like, yeah, we're not. You guys are definitely earning your paycheck. Not all of them. There's some shitbags in there too. Let's be real. There's shitbags in every portion of every branch and every part of the branch. So that's not fair to say. Like, I met some shitbag grunts too, and they tried to say something to me about my, I don't even remember what it was like. But I was like, bitch, you ain't even deployed and you got two ribbons. Sit the fuck down. Like, and the other grunts that were with me, so like, she got you there. Like, I'm like, nobody cares. Like, you're not cooler. It just, you're at the right place at the right time for that deployment sometimes. So I mean, I hate that people have to be like, I didn't deploy or anything. That shouldn't shouldn't really matter, but it does. And in terms of experience, I suppose. But even on my deployment, I went to the Philippines and it was considered a combat deployment, but everybody's, if those guys that were on those combat deployments to Margin of Fallujah and stuff came and saw what I did, they'd be like, "Fuck you, bitch! You got cold water." Like, everybody got something to say. So I appreciate the experience, but it shouldn't take away from what you did. But I also had some snipers be like dicks and maliciously mean it when they said it, where they're like, females are a waste of space, blah blah. And unfortunately, we saw the bad side of female Marines, and I'm like, I get why they say that, because unfortunately, you guys are being that person right now, and I think I had to fight so much harder against that stereotype, and it wasn't a stereotype if it's true. Like a lot of them were really doing that, and it fucking sucked. Like,
Sometimes it felt like, I don't want to say a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it seemed like once they put that stamp on you,
yeah,
like you said, it's like you're fighting not to be labeled it, but it's just it's coming no matter how much you try.
like like
Like,
helplessness kind of vibe, if you will. Like it's like they're
yeah,
that I'm gonna be that, and they already think I'm that. So
you
fuck,
already think it, so F it. Yeah.
be a hooker. Let's go. And that's not fair because I saw them guys suiting it up. You know, their barracks bunnies more than I ever would have been ever. And I was actually married during that time or dating someone seriously throughout my time in, so that wasn't the case. But I'm like, they shouldn't be faulted for, God forbid, having sex with someone. Oh, you're a slut. Like,
No,
and
it's true.
about it if you were dating somebody in that base, even like they just knew. Like, there's some crazy stuff. You're like, how do you already know my weight and my time and my what room I'm in? The fuck? Every time
Like stalkerish a little bit, you know?
yeah, I know all of my information. Do my social number
Stalker,
too? What the fuck? Like,
right?
that's
No,
that was creepy. Like they come to your door and be like, if you need anything, I'm like, I don't. You
I
figure it out.
don't.
I got it. I can big girl all by myself. Like I
Oh
was
my goodness.
fiercely independent from a trauma reaction. I was like, no, I don't need help. So asking for help is something I will do now. Saying I can't, saying no to people. Those are things, before it's like if I said no, I'm letting someone down. And if I don't make it to an appointment, I hate not being reliable. And unfortunately, my health had declined and all those things would happen. I would no show people and I would never do that. I hate that. Like I didn't know to show you on purpose that or accident. Like
Right.
time hack thing. But it's, I'm just, yeah, like I said, just it's so weird to think of who I was then versus now because I feel like at some point you were always trying to put on a show because you just were waiting for someone to talk shit about you. And it was exhausting to feel the need to validate yourself at every place you PCS to, every station that you go to, every school you go to. The only thing I did step down from was when I was in corporal's course. I was a platoon sergeant, and I was like, I don't even get anything for this. I was getting a little overwhelmed because I had some personal stuff going on, and I stepped down the last week. So I was the platoon sergeant for my corporal's course most of the time, I believe, and I volunteered for it. And um, I was getting mad at my roommate because I called her out on purpose by name during a run because I had to memorize all the cadence and I was doing the platoon runs and I was running. But if I'm running and I'm still tired and running out of breath, and that everybody was hurting, but I'm like, no, you're gonna come out and left, right, left. I don't care. You're gonna do something because we're all earning it. So those were the things I would react out of anger. I'm like, we all need to be like, I was tired of like if you're good at your job, you almost get punished for it. Like you're not going to go and do the things you need to do to excel your career. So it's like I had to fight with people to be able to go to the courses I needed to get promoted. I'm like, okay, well then train somebody up to do it while I'm gone. I'll train them myself. Like those are the kind of things that irritate me. Like you set them up for failure, and they are right when they say nobody cares about your career but you. like but I feel like they screwed some really good Marines, not only where, in Oki, but mostly I saw it in Quantico at TBS because they just had such a high tempo at that point, just like MCT did. I don't think it's like that now. I don't know what's changed since I left that motor pool, but just like go, 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 go. And I was only with the hazmat license for a while there and maybe one other person. They just didn't have enough drivers and that stuff. It shouldn't be Marines to get punished for it. There's just a lot of failures in leadership I saw, but like you said, there's some good times in there, and even the ones I'm not friends with anymore. I wouldn't say we're not friends, but we just don't really talk. I'd still probably be able to click with right away. And anytime you get into a reunion kind of vibe, it's like it goes back to that time, and only the people that experienced it during that time with those people would understand. It's not the same when you go to a ball with people, Marines you don't know. It'd still have a good time probably, but I can't relate to them because I don't know him. We didn't go through that stuff together. You don't even know what I'm talking about because the camps are probably different. I don't even know if they still have yellow and red cards, that Cinderella curfew and all that. I'm sure they do because we're idiots, but didn't stop us from getting NJP'd.
Right.
Yeah, we
Doing
got all,
underage drinking.
I think the day that I left, they locked down the base and it was terrible because four really major incidents happened. The colonel locked down all the bases. I think there was some unfortunately rapes or some really serious incidents that happen. And I'm like, bye y'all.
At least
Like,
you got out of there.
yeah, I actually was out and I miss it. And my Anderson, we don't really talk anymore, and we were really close when we were there. And that's not a fault of anything. Like I still love Anderson, but it's so weird because we probably would have never been friends anywhere else in the world if we weren't there. It's really, really weird. She's so different, not in a bad way, but Anderson, she was a spitfire.
I love Anderson.
I,
Like,
she's
can't
so
nobody say nothing, but I love that is the most spunkiest, spiciest, tiny white lady I've ever met. Like, oh my goodness.
is Mitch killed himself, and that sucks. And that's the reality that we're living now. That's like she is a spitfire. She's hilarious. It's sad that that's the reason that we get together or talk now. I don't want that to be the case. I would love to have a reunion, but like for that to be the norm now, like that's when I know I'm getting older, and that's what I'm afraid for my nephew. Honestly, it's like that's going to be his future, and that's just the reality. Like he's going to have a bunch of friends die or kill themselves, and I'm horrified that that would, God forbid, be him, because I'm like, please don't do that. That would crush me. I'd feel some sense of responsibility for that. I know that's ridiculous, but a lot of us do it to ourselves. Like I could have seen it, I should have stopped it, but ultimately, I'm just like, all I can do is support and be here. But yeah, like that breaks my heart, that to think that somebody was so low and by themselves and thought that was the only way out. Those are the things that break my heart now. And I'm like, maybe if I'd have been nicer and they felt like they could come to me, but I think at a certain point, that's the stuff that sucks. Those aren't the memories you want to have, because I have really good memories of Twitch. Like,
Right.
like,
Playing what was it, Modern Warfare or Call of Duty?
and all
I
this
just
tech
remember
clearing.
sitting
And
in
when
his room with his roommate. I forget the kid that was his
he,
roommate, the black kid. What is it?
is it Smith? Not Smith. No, I can't remember.
Oh,
I remember his
I know
face.
his I remember his face. I just don't know his name. He was always with Twitch until they split him.
But yeah, yeah, Twitch was the spazzy one. And I remember going out with him, even when I was, married to Jack and all that crap, engaged to him at that point. But um, yeah, it's just weird. I just remember packing his cyst when he got it removed. Do you remember that? He was high as shit.
Ugh, yes. That was so disgusting.
And I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna get arrested. I was like, how many are you supposed to be taking of these, buddy? Like, all of them. I'm like, I don't think that's what that means. You're gonna die. I'm gonna have to call
Yeah,
this.
that was Twitch was one of those like he was like the realization for me like how I don't know if it's politics or what. Some people call it the FF games, but that's when I realized like because Twitch was cool up until he became corporal, and then you started to see a pattern like
Because he was
this.
getting shit pushed in, is what it was. And
Yeah,
I realized, I was like, now I know my sergeant was so pissy. Like I'm seeing it come down the chain, and
yeah.
it get very political. And that was the crap I was not cool with. I'm like, I'm not going to act different over a fit rep. I'm sorry, not sorry. I'm really not, because if me kissing your ass is the only way I'm gonna make it through this gun club, then that's not gonna happen. But then I also had to deal with the you only got promoted because you slept your way to the top. I'm like, oh God, I'd be a sergeant major by now. Get the fuck out. Like, and we stopped
Right.
meritorious at Gunny, so that ain't it. That is not what's going on here. I was
I'll
like, no,
tell you.
it couldn't possibly be that I busted my ass. Like, I I I mean I broke down on recruiting duty, but I think on an SDA everybody has a breakdown point. It's hard to do an SDA. Whether I mean I wish I would have done DI, but I know it's not greener on that side either. There's a lot of shit that happens over there. But I would have done good wherever I was at. Wherever they plant me, like I would just keep going. But just a lot of things. I wonder what would happen if I went drill instructor versus this. I always think about stuff like that, but it is what it is now. Um, but
You
yeah,
made it pretty far though. Like really, I mean, I applaud anyone who makes it to a second term because it's like getting through that first one is rough.
yeah. And I had a drill instructor who got out at 12, and I'm sure she had her reasons. And it was like, you're sad for the Marine Corps because I know a lot of good ones got out, and it's probably the politics. It's that we make a lot of sacrifices, and you miss a lot of things on both sides of the spectrum. But especially like I never had any kids, and I'm like, I don't know if I will now. Do it? I'm afraid to have them because I don't want to screw them up. Yeah.
Right. No,
For
that's a legit concern.
but like my health makes it a concern for me to even have one naturally. So there's things like that. I'm like, I made those sacrifices by my choice and I would have done it again in a heartbeat. But now I'm just, it's more my mental health than anything. And it's so weird because you hear transitioning. I'm like, ah, no, I'm be all right. And it's years later that it starts to really get harder, I think. So, um, now I'm saying that to my nephew, just like, nip it in the butt early. And I'm just like, I didn't have that. I didn't have anyone to come to except for the other Marines to understand. And I'm very distant from my family because they don't understand, because it's frustrating. You don't want to have to explain every other word because all of it's military jargon. You have to explain. I don't mind doing it now for my sister so she understands what my nephew's talking about. But I'm like, let me be the middleman so that you're not stressing him out, because I'm like, you need to leave him alone because I know what he's doing. I don't know what you think. I literally asked her, I was like, what do you think he's doing when he says he's training? I was like, let me put it like this is what he's doing. She's like, oh, I'm like, so if he's not talking to you, it's not, he's tired. He probably hasn't slept in a week and he just had to shower 3 times to try to get the cami paint off. I'm like, he's done.
Mhm.
He doesn't not love you, but he's manning up. He's busy and he's in charge of a fire team now. I'm like, that's what's up. Like,
Aw,
that's
congratulations.
yeah, he's a little beast. I mean, he's way cooler than I was. I was like, I don't know where he got it from, but I'm a little spazzier than I was then, but I mean, that's just my adrenaline. It's totally normal now. Um,
I think that like you
oh,
said earlier, I think Garrison kind of makes like, I mean, I can't speak for other branches, but at least for Marines, it makes Marines what you say spazzy because like,
we're a little more anxious. You're afraid to screw one thing up. You're like,
yeah.
ass shoot for next, and that's I don't. I mean, I was spazzy at the best time, so it was perfect for me. They're like your energy. I'm like, oh, my ADHD. Yes, okay. Uh, it was perfect for that environment and being able to multitask. So I still can do that, probably not as well as I used to, but it's just I don't know. He just seems so much more composed, or he's more holds it in, and that was probably what was a bad thing for me because I just pushed everything down and never dealt with it. That is where it implodes. So that's my concern now. And still for other kids, like I don't know how I met this other Marine, I think through my other nephew, they're brothers. He was like, "Oh, I met this person about their motor teacher," and now I'm like mentoring some kid I've never even met. Like it's just like an
That's
automatic,
awesome.
like you can't turn it off. But the spazziness from like being afraid to be late to formation and I don't know, just like getting pulled in the office, you're like, oh God, what did I fuck up? Like
Hmm.
or Chiwa blasting me because, somebody drove into the fucking garage and bent the exhaust again, that fucking shit. Like I can understand his stress being in charge of what, $4 million worth of equipment at that time. That's pretty stressful. Now I get it. I do get it. But it wouldn't have been something you'd understand in the Lance Corporal Underground kind of stuff. Like it's
No. And then it sucks because there's never a period where those things are like expressed to you until you find that mentor, which many don't even like.
yeah,
I feel like I wouldn't say I didn't have one because I do believe like Staff Sergeant Weems was one for me for a
yeah.
good portion. Staff Sergeant Gross, I forget who he was with, but there was
I'm,
like a few of them, even Corporal who I think retired or got out as Sergeant Green. Like he was beneficial, even you to some degree. So it's like
I
maybe
love
it's
he's
yeah.
I think I still have him on there somewhere on my social media. Him and his wife. Yeah, I saw a picture of him a while back, and those are you're like, man, it's so hard to want to see everyone and know that one, everybody's broke right now. Like, for the most part, it's expensive. Um, it's just yeah, those are the good memories I have. So, but mentors, like I had some junior Marines that I think almost mentored me in a way. Like even I learned something from everybody that I was around. Like I was like, I don't know nothing about motor team. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not good at this. Show me what you're doing. Because some of them came in as mechs, like they were diesel mechs before they came in. So I'm like, I ain't gonna pretend I know more about this truck than you. I don't. And Caterpillar actually is out here in Illinois. The plant is right
Mm,
next, like down the street from me. So it's weird. So I can't escape it. Like, and I'm doing a logistics job right now, by the way. So I'm like, go figure. I'm an
motor
inventory
T all the way.
inventory coordinator and supply basically, still working with supply. It's just ironic, but I mean. get paid to count things and order shit. I mean, it's just kind of. I guess that's why we have a hard time is we did something so much more difficult at a younger age that now it's like nothing like we don't feel
Yeah.
it ever again. I guess that's a stupid way of putting it, but do you know what I mean? Like everybody calls it looking for your purpose. I guess to some extent that's true, but like I'm never gonna peak like I did at that point where I'm like I'm a badass. Like I don't feel like a badass right now. I'm like, oh,
No, you still are. It's just
I
it varies now.
you're
Because
like,
now you're like mom bad A, you know what I'm saying? Because not only are you like mentoring junior Marines, but like you're older, you're in the medical field. You gain so much more insight and experience that you're more beneficial now to just
I really believe
everybody you come in contact with compared to back then.
the empathy and the insight that I wouldn't have had before, like we were saying, like I wish I knew then, and just
Hmm.
compassion, knowing what they're going through. So helping veterans now is kind of a purpose. It's but I can't help them till I finish helping myself. So I'm doing the work. Is that what they? That's probably
Yeah.
not what. But
Sound like that, sound like
so like
that.
work in progress. I don't I'm not going to be who I was back then, but I'm actually working out again and I feel better. And I think it's just that consistency and having a routine is my sense of normalcy now because I did like the routine. They call it the structure, but let's be real, not all of it was structured. It was they were like, I don't know what's going on, but just make it work. You remember that? Just make it happen. Poof.
Just
But then
make it happen.
you put your way and they still have something to say about it. You're like, what the fuck?
It's a
Now
hot mess.
I don't like being micromanaged. I still hate that. That'll still piss me off. I'm like, you just told me to do what I wanted, but you don't really mean it. So which one do you want? Like, and try not to be sarcastic in a rude way because that's how we talk to each other. I'm like, sorry, that came off kind of rude. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. It's just how I am now. I've calmed down a lot. Like I was a lot angrier when I first got out. That was something I had to tone.
Likewise.
Yeah, because I'm like, I can't hold civilians or anyone that doesn't understand my side of my experience to that standard because it's not fair to them. They can only go off what they know and they
Hmm.
don't fucked up till I tell them. So
That's
I'll
true.
show you why you're fucked up. You know why I yelled at you because of this. Like then they're like, oh, if you're just gonna yell to yell, I think that's what I learned. Yelling just to yell is stupid. If you yell to get their attention and you know that it works for that person. That's what makes sense. Like I learned that later. Not everybody reacts to yelling the same way. Like you shut down and you're like, "All right, bitch." Like that's
That
how I
was me all the way.
feel like. Why are
Oh
you?
no.
Yeah, I was like, now I'm just pissed off and can't focus because I want to punch you in the face. Like so, that's a big no-no. You're laughing.
Uh,
Something about your face. Fix your face. Like I can't do it. But some of them react better to you being like, "Hey, come in my office. What's going on?" And that took a lot of time to figure out because not every I had to learn my Marines and know your Marines and their capabilities. That's a real thing. Like all that stuff comes pull forward now. Like I use that with anybody I'm working with and just having the tact they make more sense now, but I feel like we just reiterated what we learned and memorized it, blurted it out, but we didn't really know what it meant. And someone needs to show you that. You can't just know it necessarily. Does that make sense? Like I wasn't just gonna know how to be a leader. That wasn't a thing. Like some people
Nobody does. Yeah.
have those attributes naturally or they're better at them or they pick them up more naturally, but I think I still am a way better leader now than I ever was when I was in um, and emotions come into it. Sometimes you let your emotions get the best of you. That's just human nature. So
That and like you were actually given the time and the room to like, develop those skills where it seemed like when at least when we were together in Okinawa, it didn't seem like you had that chance. Cause like even when from your inception from boot camp to your first duty station, like that time is so short and you've done interacted with hundreds of different other Marine personnel and not even just Marines, some Navy, some,
all
civilians and stuff. But yeah,
I
you
feel
rarely have time to develop like legitimate relationships, skills, anything, because it's just,
it really was like I didn't even know what was going on in boot camp. Like I was a direct ship. And I was as old as my drill instructor, so it's just weird. Like I was in my 20s already, and so I was like, "Why are you all crying? What the?" I was like, "You know what's really sad when you're working three jobs and you ain't got nothing to eat. Like that's this is paradise. And that's a day. I don't have to worry about my car right now. Like that's like adult.
You done experienced life and we're all freaking out because we're
I was
children.
like crying because your knees hurt. I'm like, oh, I'll make like they were
That's hilarious.
not really funny because I know they were just kids scared and away from home. And
Yeah.
they don't really truly realize the drill instructors are not going to leave you alone. They're, I rolled my eyes one time in the first week and I learned my lesson. We're good. Like, oh, that's not good. Okay. So now I got more attention I didn't want. Noted. Like, figured that out. But I got meritoriously promoted in boot camp and I didn't know what that meant. And then I had other girls being like, well, why did she get meritoriously promoted? Like, there was just shit like that. We were already like against each other from the start. And
From
then
the
I
get, yeah.
yeah, and I didn't understand why they knew all this stuff with the pulley program. I know now, having been a recruiter, but I was like totally oblivious. But I think that was for the best. I think I learned better on the fly like that. Like that's probably why it was like I fit in here. My crazy is not normal here. This now it's praised. It really was. They're like, oh, me and the ridiculous PT stud and being kind of tomboyish and more aggressive for a female was acceptable in that world. And that is almost harder to come back out of now because I found a place where I was accepted. So I'm still chasing that, I think, to some extent. Like I still migrate towards stronger females and female military, and I don't even realize it. But I get like persecuted almost when I was even in school. I like got pulled aside by my instructor, and I think I told you this. Like I was like, "Am I really getting counseled right now over this?" She goes, "I've had complaints from other students, and I don't know if it was multiple or not. I don't really care, but." She goes, they've said you were unapproachable and intimidating. And I'm like, what do you suggest I do about that? Because that's just, I'm not going to apologize for being older, having more experience, and being confident in myself and being very blunt. I mean,
And
I did
this is when you went into college?
this is like my sophomore year of nursing school, the BSN program. Yeah. And she wasn't being mean about it, but I'm like, I'm not trying to sound like a dick here, ma'am. But I have no control over how I make somebody else feel other than the use of my words. But I'm like, if they're intimidated by me, I don't know what it is that's intimidating to them. I don't know anything about who it is, and they want to remain anonymous, obviously. But if I don't know what it is that I did to make them uncomfortable, how do you suggest I fix that? And if it's just me being myself or what we would call a command presence, I absolutely will not apologize for that. I was like, it took me years of getting my ass chewed and fucking up shit to get to that point. So I had to be embarrassed and called out and be made to be uncomfortable to grow as well. So that's where I disagree with stuff like that. I think that a lot of people are babied, and I don't want to use that word lightly because I think it also creates that toxic culture that I think is still there in some cases with the Marine Corps, where it's like you can't be human and you can't have any weakness, because that's probably what breaks a lot of us when we get out. Like when we do have to actually fall apart, then we feel like pieces of shit and can't handle it. Does that make sense? Sound kind of fair? Like
No, it does.
we were told we
Me-
couldn't part, we couldn't show weakness, we couldn't be human to some extent, and I especially wouldn't cry or do anything that would be taken to be specified as female, because then I'm just PMSing or I'm just whatever. That's the stuff that was frustrating. I'm like, or maybe I'm just really pissed off because you're being an idiot. And
That too.
I'd be like, or maybe you're being a dumbass and I just got my ass chewed by Chiwo. How about that? Like, how about that? Like, and they'd be like,
No,
oh,
that's legit. And it's interesting you said that because I went through something pretty similar too in college, and I never really paid attention to it in the beginning, except, like,
you
maybe
ask
it's the
tough questions
difference.
to
Huh?
get you ask tough questions to get logical answers, and people do not like that.
No, and it's crazy because you said like your issues were amongst students, but mine's were professors. Like I
Yep,
literally had my
yep.
professors they found my demeanor as like I'm trying to take over their job. And it's like,
I don't want to be a teacher. You're
I
good.
am 22. Like when I went into the middle or college, it's like I'm 22, fresh out of the Marine Corps. Like I went from high school to Marine Corps. So all I know is punctuality. Like if you tell me this is my deadline, then I expect all of the stuff that I need to meet that deadline.
So
And
when I
so when you drag your feet and now I have to email my teacher telling
yeah,
you, you know, release
just so it's
and
because
it's
we
like,
have expectations, and I'm like, I have every right to ask you all this because I'm paying you for one, so you got it twisted. Let's not get it twisted. You work for me right now. I'm paying this school 15,000 plus a semester for you to suck at your job, and I'm teaching myself. But I'm like, I'm asking very good questions, and you to me look completely unprepared.
incompetent. Yep.
Syllabus is not detailed, and it's not just little details, it's like dates. There's no syllabus for how you're grading. I had two teachers do this. I'm like, that is to protect you and me. So if you can't tell me how you graded this, that looks very biased because you can't show me justifiably how you graded that. So I won that one. Like I'm like, I've never in my life seen a teacher not give me a syllabus and show me how they're grading and based on what, and then at least give me notes on my paper as to what it was that I did wrong and suggestions on how to make it better. And I didn't usually have problems with writing, but on an assignment, I'm like, you didn't specify that, so you can't take points off for that. And you would push back too, I'm sure, because I'm like, no, it's wrong, it's wrong. So this is why I did that. And I made very good arguments for why I did not agree. And
Mhm.
I would take it up higher to the chancellor, all the way up to the chancellor and the deans. There's an undergrad dean for the undergrad program, and then a doctorate of nursing that was in the overall nursing program for masters and all the higher programs. And I spoke to both of them. I'm like, I'm not just going to go away. Like, you probably were like that too. And they took us as a threat. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
a threat if I have to be because I'm going to get what I paid for. That was
On
where I,
top of the fact, like they assume that everyone that sits in their seat, unless you look like you part of the geriatric community, that everyone are like children eating
I don't,
ramen noodles, ain't got no transportation, ain't got no bills. So they just feel like they could treat you any old kind of way because you're just a child to them.
you're a child that they are automatically an authoritative figure, which I don't agree with that. So the students were a lot of the times they'd be like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want it to affect my grade. I'm like, if you say something and it affects your grade, that's illegal. That is not okay. That's a whistleblower program in any school. You know, you should be allowed to say something if it's wrong or speak to them and have open communication. Obviously, as long as you're not threatening them or anything. But I got pretty angry. And after 3 years of dealing with that crap, I was like, they were more angry because I never truly failed anything. I never failed a thing. Like I had a really high GPA. I withdrew in the last semester that I left that school because they didn't allow me to retake an exam as I had on my disability accommodations to do so. And I'm like, excuse me? And so that would have been on me anyway. I'm the one that had to go in and reschedule. And I'm like, what the? They were trying to get rid of me. I know that's what it was. I was a threat to them. And it's almost like if you're too smart, especially because you understand legal, and if I don't, I'll go and figure it out and read. I'm like, I can read. And they got really
Right.
like, where's the faculties book? Because you got a student handbook. Where's the faculties? And that she got quiet and never answered the question. I'm like, I know there is one. I'm asking because I already know the answer. Because that's a Marine thing too. Like if I ask you a question, you might want to answer it because I already know the answer to it. And I read the whole handbook, and I read, like I'm like that. I'm like read the whole Mar admin, and that's the stuff they can't stand. Because I'm like, oh, we're too
Mhm.
smart for you to play fuck games with us. That don't work anymore. Here, I got the order right. It's one of those
No,
moments.
it's true. That's true. That's it's really like
I
you,
had some
it's crazy.
from the school institution, and that's where I started to get more angry, and that's where I withdrew, and I'm like, I need to take some time off because it was making me physically sick because I'm like, I can't deal with stupid anymore. I can't do it. I can't do it. So I might have to start over, by the way. Might start nursing over or do, I don't know. I was thought about social work, totally off topic, but I mean, I still have a, a want to help people, and I didn't really care how it was done. The degree was not for money. It's like I'm doing this because I want to work with people and help them and feel like when I wake up in the morning, I'm proud of what I did. Not I'm just poisoning people and throwing some medicine at them and pat myself on the back. That is not nursing. That is something evil and twisted that got real greedy with big pharma because we all hear about it, but I had to actually see it. And it what they did to those human beings, because that's what they are, it pissed me the fuck off. And I'm like, I'm not gonna be a part of this. So a little moral dilemma, if you will, moral injury is what they call that for a medical field. And you can feel that, and
Real
I
injury.
about law now too, and there's so many specifics, but I was learning about medical law and family, and seeing how the justice system really works versus what real justice is, it really does piss you off, especially when someone has to per se and represent for themselves like my sister did. That system's so set up for failure for her. Pisses me off. She had a good judge, so I think this is going to get called in her favor. But I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I get really aggressive about, and I do think that's the part of me that's different, because I'm like I will see something now and I'm definitely going to step up and like feel like I have to mama bear. That is really how it is. Like, I was protecting my Marines before I got out, and I almost felt guilty for leaving. Like, they're stuck with those pieces of shit. Staff
Yeah.
sergeant, whatever. And that's the part that I hated, is I shouldn't have to fight to just get you to do what you know you're supposed to be doing, and then you push all the other work you don't want to do on me, or you, like I said earlier, get punished for being a good Marine. Now I'm going to throw this load on you and you don't get to enjoy anything because I'm making you work more. And if you work with the right people, it didn't feel like work. Like, I feel like a lot of times in Oki, even when we stayed back later, it didn't feel like torture because I enjoyed being around everybody and we would joke around. And some days you obviously would rather go to sleep, but it's just, there's just so much confliction there, and that does transfer over into the civilian world. But the same, like, I know I squirreled completely, so you can edit all that out, but
No,
like,
you fine.
for sure, like, and some of them were younger than me. It shouldn't matter. It doesn't have anything to do with your intelligence or your capabilities, in my opinion. I've met plenty of Marines younger than me that were better at shit than me. Don't care. But if you're fucked up, you're fucked up. I'm like, no, you didn't tell me where to meet you. I don't know where that hospital portion of the hospital is or what part of that building it is. And takes up like 5 blocks. I'm going to be late and I have to be there before 7. And I don't know where you're at. I called you, I texted you, and I had to do that to defend myself and still freak out because of clinicals. And that's the stuff that pisses me off, because I'm like, 15 minutes prior kind of shit, but it just burns you out. I felt like I set myself up for failure by picking nursing, maybe.
I can see why it seems like that, but I think you taking nursing benefited you in so many ways.
Even nurse, I I learned a lot, if nothing else, how to protect myself and my loved ones after that, because I know how
Hmm.
to play that game. But maybe I feel like, and I had this conversation with my husband, you know, started looking for churches and stuff again, and we listened to our daily um, message. But I was like, maybe it was God telling me to stop. I was just fighting against God while he's trying to tell me, you ain't meant to be a nurse and you need to go over here instead. And I'm just like, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Fighting the wrong way, and that's what it felt like when I was in school, because I made it 4 classes from grad, and that's probably what broke my heart. Is I was so close to finishing something I had been trying since I was like in my teens to do, because I was
Hmm.
first. So that's the part that broke me, because I've never really, I guess, failed in my mind at something that I set out to achieve, and that sucks. So better now. I think it was a growth thing, but I'm like, how many Marines can't come back from that, or veterans, because they're already so mentally broken that they can't repair themselves. Like, I felt like I couldn't dig out. Does that make sense? Like,
No, it does. That was something I dealt with when getting out that, I mean, at first I used to look at it like a good thing. Like, I can't start something without finishing it. So it's like, at least I know, like, I'm gonna get to the end. But then, like you say, you end up starting these things that God just wanted it to be like a temporary expensive or experience, just something that teach you something, but you trying to keep
I
going. And I burnt out doing the same thing.
said, you were doing legal, right? So you don't know if that's what you want to do anymore either.
What I do is just like I was I was like placing myself into these like parameters where it's like, okay, I gotta finish school at this time so I can start. Because that's how it was. As soon as I got out of the Marine Corps, right, it's like, all right, go get your bachelor's, and then go straight, or go get your associates, and get your bachelor's, then get your master's. Then it's like, all right, then go to law school. But we're also gonna get the PhD, and then I was trying to start all these like side businesses, and I had all these, and it was just too much.
Hot stress, we're like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I'm used to, we probably both are, just from the Marine Corps, being like, here's 20 totally unreasonable time frames to get everything done. And we used to be able to do them. Why can't I do them now? That was where I was at. But I'm like, you can only keep pushing so long. But I mean, that is also America's definition of success. And I'm like, why is there a time parameter I'm putting on myself? That was what I did. I'm like, if I got to start over, and that's the crappy part about nursing is there are time parameters for when you have to be finished with the degree and when you have to complete that licensure by per when you started your prereqs, or I have to start the whole thing over, which is fair because evidence-based practice changes all the time. It's probably different even now from when I was in school, and you don't remember all that stuff. So I don't know if it's 5, 10 years, depending on what your degree is, but there was a pressure there even besides what I put on myself. And now there is like I just got 112 credit hours, and I don't know what and I could probably do a degree audit to get at least an associate's or switch over to another bachelor's. But that's the part that really killed me is I used my GI Bill for that and I didn't get
Right.
anything. That's what hurt. But yeah, I don't put a time parameter on myself now. I'm like, if I got to start from scratch and do one class at a time now, I'm kind of okay with that now. I don't care if I get my degree when I'm 50. It shouldn't matter because I mean, we're not hurting.
Exactly.
We have a home and food and we're not going to starve to death. We got savings. We're okay. So I know people are worse off. And that's the stuff that pisses me off. It's like you didn't even give those guys a chance. So, I'm not in debt. That's a blessing. Like I don't have any school debt, and none of that, but it still pissed you off. School it's kind of a luxury at this point. And I got friends that are 100 grand in debt, that didn't finish. And so they're still paying student loans. That makes me feel guilty in a sense, but I'm like, I know we went and did our time in the service and got our benefits, and I did try to use them and use them and had for the most part B's, A's, 1C, B's in
The
nursing.
usual.
Full grades are way out of way. 77 is the minimum, and that's for exam percentages and overall grades. So that if you fail one, you fail the whole class. So it's weird how they did that. But a 93 was an A, and it's damn near impossible to get. Yeah. So everybody pretty much had a B. We're good. That's
As
the
long as you pass, that's all I care,
I, I definitely passed. So I
And you
withdrew.
retain the information. Yeah, that's all that matters.
I withdrew Methodist, and I told them I'm never coming back into school after what you did because they're just evil. I'm like, and I'm not just saying that. I'm like, I'm not just some disgruntled student that got an F or something and blames the school. That's not what it is. I'm like, if I say I'm not going to do it, I'm not. I transferred, got accepted to ISU, Illinois State University here, which I guess a lot of my friends tried to transfer and didn't get accepted. So I'll take that with a grain of salt too. So I'm like, oh, thanks. And then I felt guilty there too. It's not they were trying to escape that place too, and I got out, but then I withdrew voluntarily again because I'm like, I'm not healthy. That's something I wouldn't have done before. I would have kept pushing, like you were saying, like, but I'm like, it's not worth killing my kidneys, and my heart. I was having heart issues, signs of stroke and heart attack, and I'm only 37. So that was scary. And my priorities are just so different now. I'm like, my health is my priority now, but not in the same way. Like, technically, I probably wasn't very healthy when I was a PT stud. Like, I may have been able to run like a 5 something 6 minute mile, but I, I was overtraining and not probably eating enough, hydrating enough. We were drinking a lot. Like,
Resting. Yeah.
yeah, we were definitely partying, but I mean, that's the difference between a 23-year-old body and a 37-year-old body. Like, if I
That's
try,
the truth.
it's like that meme where he's like on an IV with like the nasal cannula. That's real. I would die now. I I
You slow.
I have a couple of drinks, sometimes it'll be like periodically I'll have a couple of drinks for a week and then not drink for a month, and I try to
Mhm.
because me and alcohol, I'm gonna go try to fight people or something. It's not a good idea. I don't
No, that's it's true. I mean, the time that was like my biggest thing with getting out the military was the time dealing with time restraints. And
yeah,
like even like you mentioned with the law school, because I was beating myself up because I was like, I probably could have been like close to finishing law school now if I had just went straight after I got my master's. But that's when COVID happened. And COVID, that is one thing I will say. I thank God for COVID because that's when I realized that I was just doing too much and I needed to sit down. Because that's the first and only time I have ever experienced an anxiety attack. And it was like prolonged where it was like
yeah.
on and off for like almost 2 weeks. And that's when I realized like I'm doing too much.
Well, part, but the ironic part is that's when everything sped up for me because I was a nursing student, but it got more stressful because
Hmm.
and the more things they were putting on us. Like I had to get a COVID test every week, but it had to be the right kind of test. And if I didn't get it within this time frame, so it just added to my plate. And I had to go get a mask fitting, and I had to go and make sure that I did this. And oh,
On
now the
top of the fact that we had to finish what, like a half of semester because of COVID, and then they pushed us all online. Like that shifted a lot.
yeah, a lot of clinical paperwork to make up for the ones like they would close down a ward where we were supposed to do a clinical, and then I'd end up with 6 to 10 hours extra work rather than just doing the 5 hour clinical or whatever. So it added to my stress. But that's when I did start to fall apart and spiral down, if you will, during school, because eventually I didn't have any resilience left because I wasn't taking care of myself. And that's something I'm noticing now. Like I was having a bunch of episodes, if you will, and just fall apart, and it would take me like a week to recover because I would sleep for 3 days, 5 days, and then my adrenaline was just so spiked I couldn't come back down and chill out. Um, and my health just went, and I wasn't working out, I wasn't eating right, if I was eating at all, or hydrating. So it's like I
Hmm.
of failure there. So learning that you really do, it does matter that you take care of yourself. We always say it, but now it's like, no, I really have to for longevity purposes. I don't know how much damage I did to my body between the Marine Corps and that, but it's basically been racked for like 20 years because I was in school for like 7 years. I did 18 extra credit hours for my psych minor too. So I put a lot on myself and I can't stand it when I don't finish. So I have a psych minor. So there's that.
I did too.
Hey.
I was just about to say that too, because the
Yeah.
psych minor whipped my butt. Because I didn't know squat about college. Like I didn't even know that once you finish your associates, when you go for your bachelor's, you can do it at a whole nother,
Yeah.
like career choice. I just stuck with criminal justice all the way through. But when it got to my master's, because I on my bachelor's I did the minor in psych. And by the time I got to my master's, I'm thinking like, oh, I still got my GI Bill. It's gonna cover all this. And I
Yeah.
think it was like right a week or two before COVID like changed everything. We was pushed online. That's when I got this notification from
FAFSA.
the school I was at. Yeah, RT saying that I had an outstanding bill that I owed them, and I think it was like 15 grand because they weren't compensated for my like last semester
That's there. Like,
because apparently my GI Bill was exhausted with
yeah.
my minor, and I wasn't made or I was never made aware of that until afterwards.
Within a semester, they'll allow you to finish out the semester. That's what they did for my last
Yep,
semester.
they did,
They can't not let you finish the semester. It'd be kind of jacked up.
but
But
it was stressful.
the only difference for that, I was stressed the whole time anyway. Nursing school, there was no like, oh, how relaxing. It's just like, oh, one less thing to do. But like, I also rated the STEM scholarship, which a lot of these students didn't even know about. One of them was a Marine vet just like me that was active duty. She'd been stressing out as a single mom, and nobody in the FAFSA department knew about STEM. I'm teaching the subject matter expert about that. Was the kind of shit that pissed me off. So I told her, I'm like, you need to go apply for it right now. It takes like 15 minutes. And I'm like, that's the stuff that the school added to my stress. It wasn't even the school itself. There's enough stress there anyway. We don't need extra, but they didn't know their job. But you're saying you're a subject matter expert and you're the vet rep, but you don't know anything about my very even basic benefits. But the STEM scholarship is for science, technology, engineering, mathematical jobs. That's what it is. So it's an extension of your GI Bill for an extra $30,000, or I can't remember the other one, but basically gives you an extra. It helps me pay for the rest of my nursing school. So it was specific to nursing majors. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, well, I was lucky there. And then on top of it, because of a disability rating, you can also get, if you're 100% total and permanent, you also get any loans that you take out knocked off. And a lot of people don't know that. Doesn't mean I want everybody to go out and be like, yeah, I need 100%. I totally rate it. Some people do, some people don't. But those are the kind of things they never taught us that pisses me off. Like, we need to understand how to use our benefits. We need to know when they're exhausted. We need to know what we can do. FAFSA, that's the stuff that would have been useful, not the TAP program crap. Shit was useless.
It's interesting you say that because I thought the same thing. I was like, dang, this freaking the vet rep sucks. My counselor sucks. I had several sucky professors, and I was just like,
Yeah,
I'm literally learning all of this
on
as
my own.
I go. First, like,
On And for me, I bought a simple nursing subscription, which is like specific to nursing students, and I paid $300 extra to $500 extra for that in the NCLEX prep because I should have graduated by now. A lot of my friends have. Proud of them, but that makes me mad that like that's probably what got me through more than anything because I'm a visual, auditory. Like I need to hands on and see it more than anything. So you just reading through the slide I already went through and not even adding anything to it. What the fuck did you mandate that I come to this class for? Why did you even bother sending me this slideshow?
Hmm.
Are you kidding me? Like that was the kind of crap that pissed me off. I'm like, what? No. I had some really good ones, maybe like between 5 and 8 really good professors that made the difference. But especially the 10-year ones, some of them, it's like,
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
Not the tenure
I
professors.
it
Them
all.
be the worst ones sometimes.
I was like, that's like system set up for failure because they don't care. They're like, whatever, got my retirement, fuck y'all. Don't care if you
Yeah.
fail. And then you get the professors that are like, I hope.
Struggling to make tenure, and they're just like, I'm too stressed to even concern myself with you. It's just a hot mess all the way
Yeah.
around.
And um and like you were saying earlier, like they look down at you, like even if you made a complaint, it was a valid complaint, they'd be like, you're just a whiny student and I'm the teacher.
Any student, yeah.
And I'm like, they didn't, it shouldn't matter, but they didn't know how old I was. I was like, I'm 30 something at the time. I'm not a 20 something year old student. I don't know who you think you're talking to. I called my chancellor out. Like the last meeting I had, I stepped out and I was like, this was obviously a waste of time because she was implying that it was my fault that I withdrew from the class and that they didn't know their own policy. I'm like, this is your policy, and I had it printed out. I was like, this is what the actual chain of command should have been when that episode happened where I missed an exam and I have the right to miss exams and reschedule and get extensions on assignments. Like, I'm like, don't play with me. And then I got madder because I'm like, don't play on someone's ignorance of something. That's more evil to me that you would take advantage of someone. Those are the things that really trigger me now, if you will. I don't like that word trigger, but that's the only one I could give you. Like,
No, it's understandable. It's one of, I mean, it's a sucky thing, but it's like commonly like experienced. The only difference is that you have like the foresight to be like, I know what it's really hitting for. I'm gonna say something.
back like you're like, I'm gonna foresee they're probably gonna mess with me here, and that isn't something that everybody has, and that's where they're like, they don't get mad till later when they go back and see it. Or I was teaching other nursing students. I'm like, here, you need to know that. Just
Hmm.
do everything in writing on email, and that to some extent was true in the Marine Corps as well. So they can't be like, no, I didn't say that. Like the he said, she said, hearsay, if you will. Um, I was like, no, no, this right here is time stamped, and you can delete your emails, but I still got it. So
No, true. And then one thing I will say too about the Marine Corps is like, not only did it kind of like make, the people that get out, whether they're veterans or have what have you, retirees, but it's like it kind of already prepares you for this like life of seclusion because like I remember going into the Marine Corps, I didn't really know anybody, but the first duty station, you started to meet a few people, and yeah, over time they trickle off. But it's like the closer you got to EAS, to transitioning to civilian life, you realize like everything's starting to dwindle down. You have less friends, less this, that, and the third. And then by the time you get into society, you're more like, I'm just going to focus on me. I'm not gonna stick around because that's how I was. I wasn't really trying to join no sports. I didn't really want to get into no organizations or anything because the stuff that I had endured in the military, it showed me like people really aren't your friends, and everyone has their own agendas and you don't fit them.
yes, and even if they would have had your back before, they have to worry about their career, and to some extent, that's fair because they had families too, and I
Hmm.
decide between what's right and their career. That shouldn't be how it is, because then they put a target on their back, and that is true. I do believe that happens. The good old boys club, if you will, like that one.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, that's a real thing. Like buddy buddy over here, and there, any other job, if you showed favoritism, it would be a problem. And you can't help but have favorites sometimes. I get that. Like, I don't want to say favorites, but the ones that you click with better. But as a leader, you need to be able to differentiate that, or just
Hmm.
position or management position, whatever. It got a little skewed in some portions of the Marine Corps. I think there were some super professional ones that I met as well that I was just like, God, how do you make that look so easy? Because it's apparently not, because I'm not doing it.
Right.
But yeah, I could understand that. Like the seclusion thing, it is by choice now, I think. Not just because
Hmm.
but because I gave so much of myself to everybody else at one point that I got nothing left. I'm just tired and I like to stay at home now. I like my spot on the couch here.
I feel you.
It's comfortable and my back hurts. So,
Mhm.
and I don't want to go out and spend money all the time. I've got different goals. Like you're thinking about you and yours, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like we got taught that that's selfish, but I disagree with that now. I think that I see where you're coming from on that because I'm like, yeah, people come and if somebody really needed help paying for something, I'm not saying I would go and hand out my money, but I've had people use me for that too because I'm like I wasn't rich by any means, and still am not. But if I'm doing better than someone, I'm not gonna let them starve. But when you lie to me to get it, that I had some Marines do that. That hurt my feelings. People that I trusted and
Hmm.
that could have dismissed me and cared more about $100 that I gave them that wiped my ass with. Now I don't care about the $100. That's nothing, but that you would be willing to lose what I thought was a friendship over $100 is pretty hurtful because I'm loyal to a fault. I think sometimes it is to my detriment that I'm that loyal to people because I like that was where I said the naive and ignorant part comes from. Like I was like, oh, everyone must think like me, and that's where growing up comes into play. Like, yeah, I wouldn't do that to someone, but they sure as fuck will do it to you. Like, I it would be worth it to take $100 from you and not have somebody that has that mutual understanding of being a Marine period, but a female Marine, and that we were also
Hmm.
in place because we got things that we can click on that I can't do that with other people. So it'd never be worth it for money, but greed and money and careers and what people think is success in America, what society has told us is success, really fucks with people's morals, I would think, and ethics, if they had any to begin with. I don't want to judge. Everybody learns something different growing up. And even through the Marine Corps, I'm sorry, but not everybody's like, oh, I feel so different after boot camp because I didn't. Like, it didn't make a huge change in me. I think that came from just serving and the time and service and the real sacrifices you made during that time to really appreciate things when you came back, if that's fair. So you saying it created a environment of seclusion, I could see
I
that.
would, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, the military impacted, well, I won't say the military, the Marine Corps impacted me so much to where, like, I vividly remember being a child and wanting like 13 children. Like, I wanted a whole motherfucking football team of
Yeah.
kids.
I I wouldn't have any kids by now. I think I almost feel like subconsciously I'm trying to protect them from the world before I even have them. Yeah.
That and it's like the protection from the world, and then like even my views towards having children changed too, because I remember like getting out of the Marine Corps constantly being like told like, oh, like in boot camp, my senior drill instructor, and I'll never forget this lady because I hated her in the beginning. Like I literally had to learn to forgive her because I she took up so much energy from me because I hated her so much because I remember all the evil things that she spoke over my life, like something as simple as telling me your dad doesn't love you, even though she don't know my dad, she's never met him and stuff. But this is something that affected me
Or
because I'm a 17-year-old kid,
you're all pregnant, you're all gonna be sluts. I
You're
remember.
gonna be pregnant. She told me I'm gonna have like 4 or 5 kids by the time I get to my first duty station.
And some of it was
And
true.
yeah, and but the thing is like when she said that, it kind of like changed my entire like thinking where it was like she, I wouldn't say she did it whole like wholly, but she contributed to some of the distorted like
Thoughts.
opinions and thoughts that I had towards males, you know? And
I
then
same. I started to hate. I don't man hate. I'm not like oh toxic masculinity. Oh God, I guess
right, we're not misandrists,
I'm
but
toxic.
you
I'm toxic as a female, so I can't say that. But it distorted your perspectives of the reality of the situation. Like, well, like we said, like the learned helplessness. So like, well, that's just what you're gonna be. So just be it. And I wonder if that so be a good sociology experiment. I don't know if it's ethical, but
right.
I I mean I could see that like my drill instructor said it's funny, but it's not funny because it's kind of true. But like the stuff they were saying is you're all gonna be sluts, and
But
I'm
it's
like
like
funny, but it is.
it's funny in a sense because it's like it's so outlandish, but then It's not funny because you see how the effects it has, and then there's truth to it. But then it's like, but some of those women probably would have ended up with children if they stayed at home. Because if you look at like
it's
the pool that they get people from, yeah, like they get people from broken homes and all types of stuff. Go ahead.
no, one of them had a newborn baby and you would have never known. And to me, I'd be like the thought of missing that time with my kid. I think that's what breaks my heart for them because they made some true sacrifices to have a newborn baby and still be on drill instruction duty. And I ran into my drill instructor at Warren Officer School at TVS. So that was why I was like, oh my God, I could just see her mannerisms and her finger twitches and you just illustrate. I'm like, oh my God, it's Sergeant Schultz. It was,
Nerd.
yeah, it's weird now, but the things that they said, I'm like, they lived and experienced the Marine Corps and dealt with other female Marines. And I say dealt because unfortunately that is a lot of what I was like put on. I called it the vagina monologues or the vagina working party because I was in charge of the females. And anytime they had a problem, it was on me, even though I'm like, she's pregnant. I've never even been pregnant, but I'm supposed to
Right.
make the pregnancy order, which is to protect yourself. You should. But it was also to be like, guys, she can work. She ain't going home. I don't think so. She just can't be in a truck. She can't have a flak jacket on. Yeah, fine. But she's also not a high risk pregnancy right now. So y'all need to stop being pussies. Like you're so afraid to approach a pregnant girl and get in trouble that you just can't even do your job. Well, all these other orders, then you need to know this order. So you're protecting yourself. If you got to write it in an email and then get a response from her that way, I don't give a shit. But that they put more on us to do that than they did on themselves. That kind of
Yeah.
irritated.
It did seem like like women were brought into the Marine Corps just so they could deal with other women.
And that I should know all the female hair rags for black girls too, because sister locks became a thing, and then I had to measure their braids and stuff, which is fine. I don't care, but I'm like, I don't just know them any more than you know them. I got to go read too, bro. Like you're not broken. Like you should still know these because now you have one under your charge that has braids. Then you need to go and learn as well, so that when they're wrong, you can fuck them up. Like because they have to be held to a standard too. And that was the kind of stuff like the uniform reps and everything. I'm like, why do I gotta know 0 to 3 inches evenly graduated? I don't got man's haircut. Like, I had a, but that doesn't count. Like,
It's beautiful though. I love it.
yeah, I had a good time with that and whatever. But I was like, when I was in, I didn't have my nose pierced and all that crap. I was like, I followed the regulations and I knew the men's regulations because the majority of my Marines were men. But I don't feel like, short of Sergeant Major, that man knew everything. I was like, you just spend your time reading more admins and regulations? What the
Had
like,
to.
he was a drill instructor, but like, what the fuck? He does it. He still does it. He's actually works at a high school now for an ROTC program. Go figure. It was a perfect
And
job.
I think it was interesting too, because you said it when the teacher came to you about the student that or students, however many it was that complained about your unapproachability or whatever. I think it's interesting that I don't know, because most people realize like, okay, when you join the military, there's some sense of change or training that occurs that's supposed to prepare you for, combat and all this other stuff. But it's like their brains completely forget
Shit.
it. Yeah, once you get into the civilian world, now they're interacting with you, and it's like, oh, what's wrong with you? You're broken.
For combat, I think it's just so that you can function under stress because not
Hmm.
everybody be prepared for combat. Even people that even when I went into a combat deployment and we had situations like that where I kind of you don't know how someone's going to truly react the first time they get shot at or have a weapon pointed at them because I froze. Like I was like everything just data dumped, and that's just your adrenaline response. So yeah, I think it's more just handling stress, and not everyone handles stress well or has ever been put under stress before that situation. So everybody does respond differently. Even at boot camp, I had some girl that like literally went batshit crazy. That's terrible to say, but she just kept yelling IED, IED, and low crawling and peed herself. And I'm like, was it an act or did it really happen? I don't think it was an act. I think she was really jacked up, and it was just from the experience of boot camp. And that trips me out, because we were both like, really, it's not that serious, Like I had 3 jobs before this, but I look at it like that. It prepared us for some, but I didn't feel different. Like And I really think it just depends on what your experience was before you came even into boot camp. But like,
That's true.
I don't know how prepared I still was even after doing a deployment prep. I still was like, I still feel like I don't know shit because I don't, because I'm a boot pogue. But I don't know what the fuck's going on. I just got a pew pew in my hand, and now I got to say, those because no, like yeah. Sorry, that was just like just on a tangent, but I was like, yeah, yes and no. Prepares you for combat. I don't even feel like MCT prepared you for combat.
I don't know what it prepares you for, but I know it does something because
It did something.
like
Sure. We don't know what.
because I remember I was just like I will say though, at least for me, boot camp was like the beginning where because growing up, I feel like I was more indulged in like diverse communities where I had like quite a few white friends, especially like where I grew up. It was pretty mixed, but it was predominantly white. It was one of those like neighborhoods that was transitioning from the rich white people leaving to it slowly becoming um, ghettofied by like, the poor people moving in. Yeah. And but it was a lot of like white kids that lived over there, especially more poor white kids, a little bit of like more affluent backgrounds. But by the time I got to the military, like I noticed a lot of that stuff started, even though it's so diverse, like you've seen it. I won't sit here and lie and say like not majority of the people I hung out with were black. Like that I found more solace hanging around black people.
I'm around more Mexicans because Texas, but I mean, I don't think I saw as much. I guess the word would be diversity at that point until the Marine Corps, because I mean, most of them were like a lot of broke white country folk that needed to get a step up, and I don't want to stereotype like that because sometimes people just wanted to be in the military. I grew up broke. I mean, it's just what it is, trailer parks and shit like that. But there's so many, blacks, Mexicans, and there's still whites in there too. And that was the most I'd ever been exposed to that. Period. I mean, I didn't live in areas that were predominantly black or anything. And then I was a recruiter in St. Louis, so East St. Louis. Yeah, that's pretty bad over
It's like a
there.
complete change.
Like me, yeah. And that's the first time I'd experienced that. So it was a growing experience. That's where I would say that the Marine Corps was a good wake up, and I had to grow up real quick. That that's
That's what I was
that
leading to. The Marine Corps definitely prepares
it
you
makes
for
you grow up.
life.
Yeah, so that's a good way of saying it. It makes you grow up because
Yeah.
you're ability at 17, 18 years old that some people can't handle at our age now. Like, and I've seen it because I'm like, why are you so stressed out? But the thing that irks me now is like having somebody that talk down to me, and maybe it's just the getting mocked so much if you weren't perfect is something that one still irks me. I don't get butt hurt easily like that, but like when a little kid gets a bachelor's and thinks they're hot shit after that, I'm like, no, you still stupid. Like
Right.
still an idiot. You don't have any street smarts either. Like you might have been able to memorize and do a scantron. Good for you, bro. Anybody can agree. I am gonna say that the type of degree will matter. I will say legal, medical schools, nursing school, the hardest things I've ever done, and it's because everything is like going against you for that. But the Marine Corps still prepared for that, like stressful things and hard things. But I also am at the same time like I ain't got to deal with that anymore. So
True.
knowing
True.
that I ain't got nothing to prove, I already know what my capabilities are. So that's something that I'm still coming to terms with not finishing nursing school yet and trying to decide if I really still want to. I was like, do I really even want this? It's not just a matter of can I finish it? I could have finished it twice already. I think some part of me just doesn't want to because if you're miserable already, like there were times in the Marine Corps everybody was probably miserable, not just physically, but just emotionally. You get in a situational depression at some point, being away from your family, being away from whatever, being told you can't go on leave when you want, being micromanaged, whatever, just feeling trapped in a contract. There's a lot of reasons why I could see that happening. But like now, I think that's what's so nice. I have a level of freedom, financially and otherwise, where I'm like, if I don't want to do something, I can just say fuck it. Like
Yeah, that's true.
that's
And one thing I will say though, because I mean, I never really paid attention to politics in the Marine Corps. It do seem more pervasive now, but one thing I will say is like out here in the civilian world, it's kind of a, I don't know the right word to describe it, but it's like interesting to say the least because
But
people complain about like identity politics and stuff like that. And I could kind of see where they come from because like focusing on these things that don't really matter, you know what I'm saying? It can distort like people's
I,
perspectives and all that. But I do think like it still holds weight, right? Because like even with our experiences in the Marine Corps, we're women, and even though we don't want to lead with, oh, we're women, you know what I'm saying? We can't necessarily disregard the stuff that we've endured that we believe were because we were women. So
and
I wanted to ask you, go ahead.
sorry, I still have Marine males that are in and that are getting out that ask questions that we would think were stupid. I'm like, you really don't. I was like, we did the exact same training as you, bro. Like, they really don't. They don't realize how not different our boot camp was. Maybe it was different in some ways. I don't know, but I was like, we had to meet all the same requirements as you, except for the PFT and CFT times were different. But I was like, I still excelled at the males. I was competing at that level, but that's the stuff that is different. I'm like, but I was still doing pull-ups before it was even a thing, and now it is. So there,
Have the, like you said, the male running time before it was
yeah,
cool.
well under 18 because I was challenging myself because that way they had nothing to talk shit about. That was my way of protecting myself, and I didn't realize that it was kind of subconscious. But I was also just a competitive person.
Mm.
Um, so it is a place where competitive people thrive, and I guess stubborn can either be in a good or a bad way. My stubbornness funneled into like refusing to quit was a good thing, but stubbornness fighting with the wrong person might be bad. Like we were both pretty stubborn, so we saw probably both sides of that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where my brain was going with that one. There was a thought. It's gone
It's
now.
okay. But
Gone now.
I would say that like it plays a role and it makes it uncomfortable because even when I hear like people like just say, like this is something that I experienced, like it gets dismissed. That's why even though like you said it doesn't need to be stated, but I still feel the need to say the lead with, I didn't, I wasn't deployed, but these are some things that I've dealt with. And it's one of the things that even cross over into the VA, as I'm sure you can
That's what I.
speak to. But
Yeah,
when it comes to the VA, like even recently, I went to the VA because I've been having like literal, like I wasn't able to sleep. I was having like crying episodes and all this weird stuff. And I wasn't able to pinpoint where it was coming from. And I kept having these recurring thoughts on this one time in the military. And so I ended up talking about it to my wife. I talked about it to another young lady, and I decided I'm gonna just go to the VA to see if I can get some help with it. And even though these people would basically tell me that I have PTSD, it won't be put down as a diagnosis because it's almost as if they don't want to associate me with PTSD, especially knowing that there is no deployment history. And
it
so
doesn't
it's kind of,
relevant, just so you're aware. There is it is and it isn't dependent. So don't let that if you have PTSD, you have it. And trauma is not just related to combat. Like they do that a lot for marine sexual trauma too, that has almost some of the same or more traumatization than combat hand to hand. They would say it would be related to that. That's also why I took the psych so I could understand it. But yeah, the way that we feel like we're like, well, I'm not as fucked up as that person, the diminishing and in some terms gaslighting, like, or paternalism is what it's called, where they think they know more about your body than you do or your feelings or whatever. That doctors aren't supposed to do that, but they do it all the time. But yeah, deploying doesn't mean that you didn't get fucked up in some way. There could have been some other shit. But then unfortunately, I can also see where you're like, bitch, where do you got PTSD from? They do. And that's where I can see where the grunts would get upset because some of them do get fucked up. But I'm like, but the anxiety we feel, I think everybody has some level of anxiety when they get out. It's understandable from the time restraints and making sure you do things perfect and mission accomplishment, and then Team Wolf, then you're a Marines
but the
Wolfer.
concern would mostly be the symptoms, right? Not necessarily like the specifics of the cause, right? So,
No, your cause could be what triggers it. And if you don't
Hmm.
cause or understand it well enough, because I still have to figure out what would trigger me sometimes. I don't even understand. Sometimes I'm like, why am I pissed off about that? Like when I was so angry when I first got out, because stupid shit, I'd be like, what the fuck am I even mad about that for? Or you really have to go and dissect it, but it comes with symptoms and those become real physical symptoms. Like if you have prolonged chronic stress and fight or flight response, it literally changes your brain, changes your body, it deteriorates, it makes you sick, it causes high cholesterol if you didn't know that. It causes all like the early onset of heart failure and heart damage. I mean, we did enough damage to our liver. We didn't need help with that, but your liver is involved in your fight or flight, just like your kidneys and your adrenal glands. All of that matters. So it starts from your brain and keeps going. So chronically being stressed out, you could hit some type of, I think they call it vagal, like what we would call burnout. It's a real thing, but it's so overused or incorrectly used that's probably what you were experiencing is a level of burnout that your CNS shuts down because it's like I can't do this anymore. That is a real thing. That's what nursing school taught me, and that's why I'm still glad that I went and pretty much was right at the end. I had to do my internship and one other leadership course, and I would have pretty much been done. But like I feel like maybe that's why I went so I could understand the body's reaction to a fight or flight because that's the best thing you could do for yourself. So don't diminish it. Like if your body's reacting like that, it's to something. So you do still need to know, and it can cause real physical manifestations. It can really fuck you up, and that's the stuff that I see veterans go and deal with. And when we do diminish it, or we don't want to deal with people talking shit about it, we don't ever deal with it, and then they kill themselves or something like that. That's just not necessary. I'm like, I don't care what maybe someone is a pussy compared to somebody else, but everybody's different. That's the stuff
Right.
that does bother me because I'm like, yeah, there were some Marines. I'm like, bitch, come on. But I'm also like, now I feel like the level of compassion and empathy that I should have had at those points, I feel guilty now because maybe I would have caught things before my Marines killed themselves because that happened. It does happen. So that's what I worry about for you or any other or veteran. It doesn't matter whether they experienced a deployment or combat or whatever. Because some people go on combat deployments, never get shot at. They don't have a combat action ribbon, whatever. They can still have problems with drinking. They can still because they don't know how to deal. It would be what we would call a negative coping mechanism. You probably heard that term. You
Hmm.
drinking's one of them. It could be overeating. It could be whatever. It's just whatever you found comfort in to deal with that uncomfortable feeling rather than actually just dealing with it. Because that's a lot of what I see. That's why I want to work with PTSD because I feel like there's so much more misunderstanding. And why the fuck am I going to have some civilian that has no trauma tell me what I'm supposed to be feeling? Like
Yeah.
I see, and I think that's the disconnect with the VA and helping people throwing pills at them. Medicine has its place, but there isn't a cookie cutter medicine protocol, and that's what they're following for each person. That's the stuff that bothers me. I'm like, and some of those medications can cause some really dangerous side effects like suicidal ideations. So what you're feeling is completely normal actually. Like the crying and not knowing why you're crying, it's your body just telling you to stop. I bet you were really, really stressed out at that point for whatever reason. Or you finally
Um, to
for
some degree, I mean, it's a lot more to it that I'm not comfortable
no,
with
was it
putting
like you
out on.
stopped for once and then you didn't know how to deal? That is what I
It,
did.
it's one of those things where it's like it bugs me and then I don't have to deal with it for maybe a few days or something. Then it comes back up and then I don't have to deal with it. Then it comes back up. And it's
So
one
when
of those things, it's one of those things where I kind of like you said, dismissed because, and that's why I brought up the question about identity politics is because people complain about it, but it's one of those things where you can't leave out because it plays such a role on
those
on
feelings
like my ideologies and everything. And so a lot of the stuff that I endured, like I kept quiet and didn't really say, like barely even went to medical for any of my issues because in the back of my mind it's like if I say this, I'm going to
are
be looked on a certain way because I'm a woman or because I'm a black person, and it just keeps going. And so it's like you said, it's become something that bottled up, sometimes internalized. And
can diminish it and say no, that's not what it is, and it's so easy to argue that what it isn't, but you can't prove it either, and that's what makes it hard. And I agree with that. There's no point in even going, I'm gonna be more stressed out trying to deal with the VA than if I just leave it alone.
Right.
I just tried to use Voc Rehab. I'm like, fuck this, I'll just pay for it myself because I'm so angry. Like I had it getting angry about that. I was like, fuck you, because it makes me so angry knowing veterans are trying to get these benefits and can't use them. So what you're saying is like on point, 100% true. Actually, so you don't have to talk about what it is, but I'm like, if it keeps coming back and it's affecting you, something's up. Like
Right.
even if it's just social anxiety, if it's something that happened while you're in that you don't even understand why it's doing this to you or why you're reacting. I don't know what the situation is. Don't need to know. Um, but yeah, that's something I would say the VA may help or hurt more, and that's the problem that I see. VA isn't always bad. It has some really good programs, but trying to utilize them is a pain in the fucking ass. It really is. But if you need some suggestions for whatever type of whatever help, I can actually find that. And I'm training to be a VSO now. So maybe that's what I was meant to do.
Awesome.
Yeah. I feel like it makes more sense because technically I'd have to have an associate's in health or something and social work. So I was always drawn to social work. So that's probably where I'm going now. Um, all happens for a reason. But yeah, I hope that it gets addressed, but don't I would say, and this is the best advice I've gotten, don't expect them to fix it or expect too much from them because some part of it still has to come from you, but you do have to address it unless it causes chronic re-traumatization. There's
Right.
like that's where it's a balance. Like if talking about it stresses you out more, that'd be like complex PTSD where you're not ready to go there yet. Maybe you dissociated a little bit from things. It can cause more harm than good. So it's like that fine balance. That's the part that's scary, I guess. It's so much harder to address mental health than anything else, and that's probably why they're just not good at it because there is no one. It's not like I know what the sickness is because I took this, I did this lab, and it's not like functional. It's so much more complex with the mental stuff. So, but I mean, I digress. Sorry. All that because the mental does cause physical health problems. Stress really does kill people, and it causes manifestations of real physical diseases and comorbidities. So that's where I'm like, don't ever diminish it like it's not important. Because I mean, I just had one of my gunnies had a heart attack, and he was 41. That's a real thing. There's a reason why we have heart attacks after we retire or in the middle, like we're in our 30s, because we just cram so much stress and so much life into a short period of time that our bodies just hit a limit. So you're hitting a wall for a reason, for whatever happened and whatever is causing it. There's a reason behind it, and you're not wrong because there is prejudice in medicine. That's just they can deny it all they want. I saw it. It happens, absolutely does happen. And I hate that for my patients or any patient that has to go in there. I felt it as a patient. I was going in and out of the fucking ER. And my PTSD was, and my anxiety was what dismissed them from looking beyond that it could be anything else. And it was my kidneys and some other things, which could be from constant stress and anxiety, but they were just treating me like I was a drug seeker and all that. And I was like, no, I don't want anything for pain. I have a lot of pain, but I do want something anxiety. And you're laughing because it made me cry because I was like, I don't feel comfortable going into a doctor's office or an ER, and now I have anxiety that I never had going to a doctor.
It's so true how they just treat you as a drug seeker.
It
I've
broke
had
my
that too.
broke,
It's like, what?
and some of them
What?
are, but you can tell the goddamn difference. I'm sorry, you know the difference.
I'm saying.
But
Because
a patient's pain is what they say it is. And the funny thing is that became a thing for the pain scale because of opioids being created. So they created their own monster and then they demonized patients for it. So that pisses me off. But they sometimes they don't even do a true pain assessment, which is required. It's part of a vitals, technically. There's things like that I know now that piss me off. I'm like, no, I don't want any freaking opioids, bro. But I do want some Ativan if you would. And they're like, oh, how do you know what Ativan is? I'm like, because I'm a nursing student. Like I was getting angry. That's so I went in there angry with some of my Marines and would be there as their advocate. So now you're 100% on point on that. 100%. Sorry, I get it worked.
without that experience, though, they would have just
I'm
treated
remembering.
you like crap. Yeah.
I'm remembering it. And it breaks my heart because I'm like, this is exactly why my patients don't trust you. And I don't even blame him because you're a dick. Like,
I'm
you know,
glad you had the knowledge because that's the sucky part. If you ignorant on the matter, oh, they will definitely pull an okie doke.
dose of Ativan. I was like, I'm actually afraid to have a bad reaction to the medication. Can you put me on the lower dose and then we can titrate it up as needed? So when she heard me say titrate, you could see her butthole pucker. She knew I was a medical. I was like, I've really only had it one time, and it was when I was in the crisis center and just lost my shit and had a dissociative episode, which is like a dissociative identity disorder, like when your body can't handle and your brain can't handle anymore. It will have blackout periods, and that's what I got to after 5 days of not sleeping and being so stressed, and had like six friends try to kill themselves that semester. My car got totaled. It was just like and like
Right.
and they it's the only time I've ever had a medication. Like I really don't like meds, to be honest. The medication makes me nervous now because at one point they had prescribed me like 30 different things and I just looked at the bottles and I'm like not comfortable with this, and I'm glad I didn't. But that's what they do at the VA. Sometimes they get in trouble for over medicating, and that's real, a real thing. So
So I would ask in closing, regardless of whether changes have occurred or not, what recommendations would you put out there to not only the Marine Corps or the military in general, but also the VA? Like, what are some things that you would like to see differently?
they need to teach them about the CFR regulations. They know what I'm talking about. The regulations that are important. Basically, everything that you would learn and you would learn as a VSO or a VA claims agent, because that's what I have to be before I can be a VSO. You need to teach yourself those and read them and understand them and dissect them before you ever need to actually use them, because then you can know the road and play the games with the VA before they ever try to screw you over, because they're not going to tell you that stuff. They don't want you to know. Like you rate a lot of stuff and they won't teach you that. And I would say teaching yourself about psychology, teaching yourself about anatomy and physiology, those things in the medical system in general and VA specific, because it is a nonprofit, so they're protected, so you can't even sue them if you get fucked up, which is really messed up. You have to take it to a civil suit. Things like that that you learn. Yeah, yeah, your eyebrows raised, right? Yeah. When you
I
learn that,
hate those protections, but I'm listening.
most of the doctors, and this is what will really trip you up, most of the doctors and the staff there are either getting their hours for their whatever they need for their licensure, or to be here, and as a nurse practitioner you have to get a certain number of hours under a doctor, and I had one of those. So they're working for free and already don't want to be there, or they have almost positive already had some legal actions or complaints made against them in the medical field to work there and nobody else wanted them. Promise you, that's why our medical sucks a lot of the time. So that's not a guess, it's what I started to read. I was pissed. So learning that and educating yourself, we say, I'm sure people hear that a lot, but educating yourself is the best thing you can do for yourself as a veteran or any patient, any person, like legal system wise as well. I mean, to understand where you can go with that, and how to keep yourself safe and how to properly use your benefits even before you get out, because there's time restraints on a lot of that within 90 to 120 days getting out too. You need to know that. That's what's really important. Fuck your TAPS class. That shit's a joke. I can go and pay somebody to do my resume for me if I really needed to. Like I'll learn it, read it. Like there's nothing. I wouldn't let them intimidate you. I really hate the VA for that. They're not helping a lot of people. Really, they're just scaring them into quitting, or you know, they're like me with this folk rehab where I'm like, it's not even worth it. I'd rather pay than even try to use this and go through this game for the fifth time trying to apply. So it's going to be frustrating, but I would also say don't quit if it's in terms of disability rating, because sometimes appeals processes take years. You're experiencing that, um, if anyone ever had any questions, or I can't answer, I would direct them to somebody that would, but I'm like, please learn this shit, because if I'd have known earlier, holy crap, would have been a lot less pain. And now I can protect my nephew when he decides to get out. So that is a comfort for me, is that like I'm like, oh no, bitch, you need to read this right now. I
That's a blessing.
have
No.
afraid rest on the phone, motherfucker. Like yeah, it angers me, but it also gives me that oomph to want to even get in politics. And I've never been political, like you said, like because it's the only way things change, medical or VA or benefits, any of that. So the only way to protect myself and my friends and my family and even vets I don't know is for me to go in and be their voice. And the more you know, the better of a voice you have for yourself. That would be my best advice. I think it's true.
Well,
Yeah.
it's great advice, knowledge, and advocate for yourself. Because if you don't advocate for yourself, it will not happen.
Aggressively an advocate. Very be like, what did you say?
Yeah.
And I think that's why you're like that too. Like we learned because we didn't trust what we were hearing, and we were probably right about what we didn't trust. And it
Oh
was
yeah.
get that feeling that gnaws at your stomach, like I don't sound right, and you're probably right about that. It doesn't sound right because it's a lie, or they just didn't tell you. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Sorry, there's a lot of that. You cut that out, but I hope it helps somebody or that somebody gains something from it. And if anybody ever wanted to reach out and ask me a question, I'm more than willing to talk to them and do my best to answer. But I'm still a VSO in training, so
I
it's
mean, you're still a person, and God put you on this earth to still be beneficial. So I will ask you, whatever you're comfortable with, you can you know, let them know your socials. So if there are, whether it's a veteran that wants to reach out to you, someone who considering joining the Marine Corps, or even it's just a human being that just wants some information, what is your social media information so they can contact you?
I may have to I'll just screenshot it and send it to you, and then
Okay,
out to you. I'm more than happy to share just because I don't know if my phone's gonna let me do that right now.
that's
he's
fine.
he's about to die.
It's
I
good.
get
It's okay.
the fuck out of the phone.
Well, it's all right. But I do thank you for,
Email, any of that, I'll give that to you. You're more than welcome to share it with anybody. And thank you for having me. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
oh no, you're fine. It's because I'm using a different platform than we had last time. So every time one of us speaks,
It's a little
it
delayed.
like, yeah. But I do thank you for doing this interview for me again, because for those who aren't aware, this is Amy's second time doing this video with me.
Ah,
But honestly, I don't even mind doing it.
no,
And even if it's not just the same, if it's just getting you to come back and we just have a conversation, because the platform is going to be placed on the antithetical antagonist. It's the
okay,
podcast that I created, and it's like a podcast that's to inform, but I also wanted to implement interviews from like your regular average person, not someone necessarily that's a celebrity or striving to be. It's just so people can see that there's regular people out here who,
on the veteran, because you can say veteran, thank you for your service, and it's just so robotic, and I don't know if they always truly know what they're saying when they say it or what it means. But like my friend Beth is just like both of us. She was saying that I don't know why, but we're like we should have podcasts. I'm like we get canceled immediately. we're
no, for real though.
correct. Yeah, that but to have those real conversations and I'm like a guy can come on and have a conversation with us too and because that's where I feel like there's disconnect. I'm like guys have come in and ask us questions. What would you wish you knew or whatever. Those are the types of talks that would be probably more beneficial than just talking shit. Like I talk shit and that's how I love people is talk crap. But that it's just a lot of it just needs to there needs to be somebody in the middleman fixing some of this stuff. But some of it is the culture. Unfortunately, with the Marine
It
Corps,
is.
very yeah, and it's a man's world, bro. And I'm
We
cool.
just we're just temporarily here, just
Yeah,
traveling.
but remind me, and I'll get you that information. I just got to run to the store real quick, and I'll probably forget because I squirrel every 5 seconds.
Oh
But
no, you're fine.
I like doing it. I think it's a form of like therapy almost, whether it's to help other people or we just talk to each other because we get it. So
Yes, and I love you. Like every time I think of like reaching out to you, I always think like it's like, oh, I'm so happy that we still talk, because
it's
like
weird.
we both mentioned in the beginning, a lot of the people we were somewhat close to, we don't even deal with, but we've developed a relationship where we actually like I love you, and I'm glad I actually got the opportunity to know you where I we didn't have that when we first met each other.
That's so weird because we like lived in the same building and all. It's like I know you better now, and Franco, even though I don't talk to her that much, like I know y'all better now, or it just feels like less pressure. Like I can actually be myself. Nobody really got to know the real person then because it always felt like we had to put on a show or we couldn't be ourselves and had to worry about something. So yeah, yes and no. But yeah, I on that note, well, you have a good day, Miss Grayson.
Thank you, ma'am. You too. I love you, and I'll reach back out to you.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye.
If you want people to think otherwise of you more positively, then give them more positive experiences.